Hello everyone, Sandra Madafferi again. Already been live once today, but that was to do an amazing interview with Rohini, which we will continue these interview series on Friday mornings. But I wanted to speak today about the very last pillar of emotional intelligence, part 5, which is about social skills. So of course, as I keep saying in all the videos, these 5 pillars, all these all working together, they're not separate. So it's really important that if you haven't seen the first 4 in this series, that you go back. It is on the YouTube channel. That is probably going to be the quickest and easiest way to find it. But today I want to talk about pillar number 5, or part 5 of emotional intelligence, which is social skills. And when I talk about social skills, really, hi Karen, nice to have you on here. Really what I'm talking about is communication skills. And when we look at emotional intelligence and the social skills of emotional intelligence, it's all about communication and improving your communication skills. So that is basically what this last pillar of emotional intelligence is all about. So it's all about you being able to form better relationships, whether it be family, whether it be with your partner, whether it is with work colleagues, with clients, with customers. It doesn't really matter. Emotional intelligence goes across every area of your life. And if you can really get your head around emotional intelligence, this will be of great help for you. So let's have a talk about what is effective communication and how you can start developing effective communication. Now remember, people like to be heard. People like to be seen and heard. They like to be understood. They like to know that the people that they talk to are interested in them. So remember that we have 2 ears, 1 mouth. So when someone's talking, listen to them. One of the worst things that you can do when someone's talking, and if you've ever worked in a call center or anything like that, or in conflict resolution, one of the worst things that you can do is interrupt someone who's upset. So listening and is very, very important. So how do you do that? You listen to understand what the person's saying rather than to what am I going to say back. Most of us, when we're listening to someone talk, we're either thinking of something else, or we're thinking, what am I going to say? How am I going to respond? What am I going to say to them next? So you listen to a person to understand what they're saying. Now, one of the best things that I ever did when I learned to be a therapist is learn these communication skills, and learn the fact that when a client speaks to me, I listen to understand if I have to take notes, and then I repeat back to them, is this what you meant? So that I make sure that before anything comes out of my mouth, that I've understood what they've said. So this, again, it's regardless of whether it's clients, customers, business, your partner, it's important that before you respond that you get an understanding. So it's always a good idea to feed what they've told, your understanding of what they've told you, back to them. Okay, so really important that you make sure that you've got the right information before you respond. And sometimes you have, and take a deep breath if you're not sure how you're going to react after that. Understand, this is a really good one. We actually teach this in NLP, and we teach this as a communication skill with clients. But understand if a person is visual, auditory, or kinesthetic, and you can hear this in their language. So someone who is visual like me will always say, I can see that. Can you see the beautiful green grass at the park? Someone who is auditory will say, I can hear that. And someone who is kinesthetic will say, I can feel that. Someone who is what we call auditory digital needs to talk to themselves, and they will say, I have to think about that. Now, why is this important? This was this is really important. This was studied by Virginia, in NLP, was based on the study of Virginia Satir, who was an amazing family therapist. And one of the things that she did was she when she used to do conflict resolutions with partners and families, she used to show people how they would actually be, and I'm going to say look because I'm visual, remember, but she would show them how people would be interpreting the same language or the same form of communication through different styles. So for instance, if you're having some conflict with someone and you're trying to get them to hear what you're saying, and they're visual, they're not going to respond to that. So for instance, let's say you're having an argument with me and you're trying to get me to hear what you're saying. These days it's a little bit different for me because I'm trained, but before I was trained, I would never have responded to that. Yet if you said, I want you to see what I'm saying, as though it sounds weird, and I say this all the time and my husband picks me up on it all the time, I would then respond in a much more better fashion. So understand what is how a person's communication style through the senses is, okay, and then you speak to them back in that sense. Sorry guys, I've got lots of notes here. Don't always take what someone says at face value. Why do I say that? There is always more to what someone says, more to what they say behind their language. Sometimes people cannot articulate themselves or find the words that they need to say. So sometimes they will say a word that isn't what they're meant to say. Or the two of you, if you've got two people there, someone might say a word that has a different meaning to what you hold for that meaning of the word. So when someone's talking to you, don't always look at that meaning and that language and what they're saying at face value. Okay? Take a step back and say, what could this mean? And if my way of dealing with this and with conflict resolution, because I do a lot of this with clients, is that I say to them, okay, so if you've had a bad reaction to a word someone's used, step back and say, what do you mean by that? So allow them to be able to tell you a little bit more of what do they mean about that word. Don't automatically assume that a word that someone uses carries for them the same meaning that it carries for you. Okay, so that's another way. Another way that you can improve your language and communication skills with people, your social skills, is keep an eye on your body language. So if I was talking to the camera now and looking over there, yeah. So this wouldn't be great communication. I'd be showing you that I'm really not interested in what I'm doing. So it's really important that when you're communicating with someone, that you're looking at them, that you're paying attention to them. The other thing that does for you is that while you're having a conversation with someone, you can watch at their body language and to see how they're responding to what you're saying. So if you're having a conversation with someone, it's a very, very good idea to watch them as well. Now, in NLP, we call that sensory acuity, and we actually do a whole segment on teaching you how to have sensory acuity so that you know if the person is interested, if they're getting angry, you just watch them and you can see what they're doing. So very important that you watch your body language as also the body language of the other person. And it's not just their facial expressions, it's whether they start to slump, or if I sat here talking to you like this, do I look interested? So be very aware of when you're communicating that you're aware of your own body language plus looking at the other. Facial expressions is another one. If I have to tell you how many times I have partners come in here and tell me that they speak, and it's not necessarily men or women, it's both, that they speak to their partner and their partner rolls their eyes. Okay, so be aware of your facial expressions when you're talking to someone. But also, if you're looking at someone, like I just said, make sure you're looking at someone, be aware of their facial expressions. And it doesn't mean that you get upset. It doesn't mean that you get triggered by the facial expression. It might just mean that you say, what's that about? And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a moment when I talk about some tips for you. Okay. Also watch when you're having talking to someone that you don't invade their personal space. We all have personal space, and our personal space is different for everyone. So again, this is another twofold one. If people are getting in your personal space, just politely let them know, sorry, that's a little bit close for me, I don't feel comfortable. But also make sure you don't get too close to someone in their personal space. Could you imagine if you got really close to someone that you were having a debate or something with? Hi Deanne, nice to see you again. How that would, you know, how that might look like to them. So be aware of getting in their personal space. And the other thing, conversation with someone, be really careful that, because pointing is accusing. And I always say to people, I heard this from a mentor of mine, remember that when you point at someone, you've got one finger pointing at them and three pointing back at you. But don't point at people, because that can also be very confronting as well. So just be aware of what you're doing when you're communicating with people. Okay? So here's some little tips on how you can improve in this very short time of this video without going into how do you do sensory acuity, how do you build rapport with people and all of that, but just in this very quick short video that we have today. So here are some things that you can help with your social skills and with your communication, which are the same thing for you and people around you. Like I said, whether it's business, whether it's clients, whether it's family, whether it's your work, these skills can be used across the board. So when you're having a conversation with someone, or when you're around someone and someone says something, see it from their perspective. We spoke about this in empathy yesterday, and that's why I said that these 5 pillars all work hand in hand. You cannot have one without the other. You need to be able to develop all of them to develop great emotional intelligence. So when someone says something, see it from their point of view. Okay, and I'm not going to talk too much about that because it was very heavily explained in part 4, which is empathy. Remember that someone else's reaction is not always about you. Now, people go around with unresolved emotional issues. They might have gotten up in the morning and had a fight with their partner and they've come to work upset. Or they might have just gone, lost a sale of a client or whatever. So they're in their own emotional bubble, so to speak. So the next thing that happens is you come along and you say something and they react at you. So it's not necessarily always about you. Be really, really aware of that. That's one that I learned the hard way, that people, it's not, I used to take things, I used to get so offended by things that people would say or the way people reacted to me. And it wasn't until I learnt these great skills of NLP and emotional intelligence and a few other things that I realised it really isn't about me. It's about what's possibly going on for the other person. So remember that, you know, this is all about things to develop and remember before you respond to someone. So when people are talking, really, really important that you support them rather than tell them what to do. There's nothing worse than telling someone what to do, especially when they're in a really volatile state or in a really heightened state of emotions. Support them. Listen and support them rather than talking back at them and telling them they should do something a certain way. I can't begin to tell you how many times I have clients say to me, I can't talk to anyone in my family because they might have something, they might be in a relationship that their family doesn't like, and what happens is that, or a job that they don't like, or they've been told they should do something, and instead of the family supporting them, they tell them what to do. So support a person, listen to them and get them to come to their own conclusion. Of course, if they do ask you for advice, make sure that they're ready to hear it if it's not going to be something that they have asked you for. But there is nothing worse than giving people unsolicited advice, so be aware of that. The other thing that will help you with communicating with relationships with social skills is you need to become a little bit more vulnerable. A lot of people have walls up, and other people can't break through those people's walls, and they can't understand you. So if someone cannot understand you because you have a wall and a mask up, and let me tell you guys, I was the queen of this, absolutely the queen of this. How can you expect people to then communicate with you in a way where you can really understand each other? Energetically, if you have walls up, and I'm not saying tell people your deepest, darkest secrets, but if you're not being you, if you're not being uniquely you, and there's only one of you, and you should be uniquely you, you cannot expect that your communication with the other person will be completely them either. Now, when I say that, it also means that you have to set boundaries. One of the biggest problems that I find with people when it comes to social skills and communication skills and relationships is that they don't set boundaries. They're so scared of hurting the other person by setting a boundary. But unfortunately, if a person does not know where your boundary is, they will overstep it according to where their boundary is. So be aware of that. And if they overstep it once and you don't say to them that when you went a little bit too far with that hurt me, you don't always blame or accuse, you just say how you felt, they will overstep it again and again and again and again, and that is going to create some real big problems. Of course, if you do tell someone about your boundaries and then they don't listen, then you might want to have a look at, where the relationship is or where it's going. Okay, so here's some steps. I keep saying I'm not going to do these long videos, but they keep happening every time. Here's some steps. Check in with yourself. Again, now we're going to be looking at how to improve your communication, your social skills, and your relationships of this pillar by using the other four. So check in with yourself. Make sure that you absolutely understand what's going on before you speak. A lot of the time what happens is when people are arguing, and I see this so much in husband and wife relationships or partner relationships or intimate relationships, is that they don't allow each other to speak. They cut in, and they react according to what they think the other person is saying rather than what's really happening. So check in, make sure you understand 110% what that other person is saying, and you check in with yourself before you respond and talk back. You've probably heard this one too. Be interested instead of interesting. Okay, so when someone's talking to you, when someone's trying to build a relationship with you, when someone's trying to get to know you and you're trying to get to know them, be interested, not interesting. You need to be interested in them. And hopefully they will reciprocate and be interested in you. So if you really want to build great social skills, communication skills, and relationships, you need to be interested in the other person. Appreciate the other person. Appreciate them for who they are. I'm not saying that you need to have lifelong relationships with everyone, but if you're wanting to create a relationship with someone, you need to appreciate them for all their uniqueness and who they are. The next one, and I touched on this a little bit before, is develop curiosity. When someone says something, don't respond or react according to how you're filtered that one in, what they've said in. Okay, I've spoken about this again in one of the other parts, but have curiosity. What do they mean by that? What could that possibly mean? And if you're either getting not a great reaction to it, or you're getting triggered by it, or you don't quite understand it, just ask them. But it's better to know exactly where someone is coming from before you react or respond to them. And you should, hopefully emotional intelligence never gets you to the reaction. It's all about responding. So make sure that you ask the question. Don't assume that you know what someone is saying, and we know what assume means, and ask out of you and me. So if you haven't heard that before, that's what assume is. So every conversation you have, whether it be conflict or debating or whatever it is, come from a point of curiosity. What do they actually mean? And if you don't get it, ask them. Make sure that you understand what someone means. And the last one, smile more. If you smile, and I don't mean smile in a facetious way, if you smile, you tend to put people on side immediately. So that's it for me today, guys. That is the 5 pillars of emotional intelligence, something I learned a few years ago, which has incredibly helped me to understand myself, to self-manage my emotions, and to understand my emotions, and to develop more empathy and greater communication skills with people, which is so important as a therapist and a coach and a mentor, to have these sorts of skills. I highly recommend that if you haven't seen the other 4 videos, please do yourself a favor, jump on, watch them, and I look forward to bringing you another series next week. I'm not sure at this moment what I'm going to talk about. If anyone, because I've got quite a few people on here watching, either watch here or on the replay, if anyone would like to give me a topic, hopefully I'll, if I can't talk, if I don't know anything about it, I'll let you know. But if I've got any knowledge on it, I'm happy to talk about it. But yet again, guys, while we're in lockdown, I've got lots of things happening. So please join me for the interviews. Pleasure, Karen. Glad you enjoyed it. Please join me for the interview series that I'm going to do on Fridays with some great leaders in their field. Please join me for Monday morning meditations that I'm going to run. Please join me for the webinars. I'm going to spontaneously run some webinars. I've got one this Sunday. And join me for the Wednesday mornings, which is a virtual coffee. I had one last week and it was such a great success. It would be remiss of me not to do that again. I look forward to seeing you guys. Have a great weekend, and I will catch you on Monday morning, 10 a.m. for meditation, which I'm going to record. So if anyone wants it later on, let me know, but it will be live on my page. Have a great weekend, everyone. I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon. Bye for now.